Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, I'm joined by a guest. His name is Kyle, and he goes by the Travel Money Guy. That is the Travel Money Guy. What's up, Kyle? How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, Vance? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's awesome to get you on. There's, I guess, I heard about you through Dan Rustine, Danny Boo Boo, um, and there's been like a consistent sort of Colombia and Medellin theme on the early podcast guests, but we'll diversify eventually. But I guess we're going deep on Medellin for a lot of the first couple episodes we have.
Yeah, not a bad idea just to pick one city and really dive deep because then your listeners will get a lot of value from that. So I didn't know Danny told you about me. That was nice of him.
Yeah, Danny told me about two guys, yourself and the money. Sorry, yourself and Sam Miller Life.
Yeah.
So Sam and I recorded a podcast just yesterday, and then getting you on now. And so I guess I'm trying to round up the whole Colombian gringo crew or something. So let's get into your background. Give everyone a little bit about who you are. And I know you're from Houston and you lived in a couple cities in Latin America, but we'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So I grew up in a kind of a suburb, kind of a country-esque suburb of Houston.
Hmm.
But then, but yeah, I did the kind of the American dream. I went to Texas A&M University, graduated and worked for 5 years for a large money management firm, which we sold investments to like Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, UBS, things like that.
Hmm.
And that was always my dream to work in like something like stockbroker esque because I was a kid in the '90s and I wanted to be a stockbroker when I was a kid. And then,
Hmm.
um, and then after that, I visited Medellin. Was my first kind of solo trip when I was about 25, and
Hmm.
then that just totally messed up my life, my life or my what I thought was going to be this American dream. Married and with a house and kids. By whatever 25 or 30. I visited Medellin and I did a early what I call an early retirement. I took a year off when I was like 26 and lived in Medellin, and then went back to the corporate world 4 years. Did tech sales
Hmm.
because I got a taste of kind of like remote work.
Right.
I didn't want to go back to the suit and tie, even though I love the investment stuff. But yeah, and then I did 4 years corporate world, and then I bounced. I did I guess my second retirement, and during the pandemic, I moved to Tulum. It was the only place open. And then once Colombia kind of calmed down, I made my way back here. Um, so so that's kind of where the name, the Travel Money Guy, came from. Was I have that investment background? That's what's helped me live for 2 years
Hmm.
without having a corporate job, and
Hmm.
work on my YouTube channel and also kind of videography, video editing, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm in Medellin, and that's where I'm at now.
That's awesome, man. And I saw that I think the first you started your channel in November 2020. So it's been just barely maybe 15 months, a year and a bit. You've gotten over 1,000 subs, which is awesome to accomplish in your first year, and done it on relatively few videos as well. How's your YouTube journey been?
Yeah, thanks, thanks, and Vance. Let me say thank you for asking because no one ever asked that question. People just like, oh, you have a YouTube channel? Like, how many subscribers you got? Oh, okay. Like, no one really understands the struggle. I never knew anything about video editing. I've never been really consider myself a tech guy, but so yeah, thanks for
Hmm.
asking. Yeah, my first video was with my phone, my smartphone in a park in Mexico City, and I think I did. I was Mexico City open right now because it was like 2020 pandemic. No one knew left from
Hmm.
right, and if you can go to Mexico, and if you could eat at a restaurant, whatever. So that was my first video, and it's been a mental struggle for sure because you're starting over from scratch. You feel like
Hmm.
you're worthless. You don't know how to edit a video. You don't know how important audio is. So yeah, right now, guys, I'm talking to you on this mic because
Nice.
if you're sitting down and doing any sort of production, you need a real mic. And anyway, so It's been challenging for sure. And let me just say something. I'm not the guy, like, I've never been the type that's like, oh, hustle culture, like, I'm gonna crush this YouTube. Like, so I've taken my sweet time with the YouTube channel. I started off uploading like once a week. Uh but yeah, I've never really kept myself to I have to upload once a week or twice a week or once a month. I've kind of just I've tried to stay consistent, but I didn't want to just make a video to make a video. So yeah, I think if I worked harder, I could have gone faster. But it's been a challenge, and then throw in the pandemic, and then what countries are open, and and then like I was in
Sure.
Brazil for a while in 2021, and um, things were there were lockdowns. It's like, well, how am I supposed to make content with lockdowns? So um, yeah, I could talk a lot more about it, but we can get more specific. But last thing I'll say is I originally wanted to talk about like investments, mutual funds, ETFs, and then also like, my favorite restaurants in Medellin. But
Hmm.
as I've learned, you just can't really, I mean, if I was like super famous, maybe I could, but you just can't really do both. Like people are like, wait, what? Like you're talking about an ETF and then now you're talking about coffee shops in Medellin. Like, you know, anyway, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So anyway, I've kind of made this channel more about travel now. Um,
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I've experienced the same thing on my personal channel, apart from the My Latin Life channel, where on my personal channel it was all Python videos and programming tutorials. And then I started posting some travel videos, and it just makes no sense. But I was like, oh, I'm doing cool stuff. I might as well post that too. So I know what you mean. It's hard to be consistent. I mean, I guess my question for you would be, you hit 1,000 subs. Hopefully, you got your 4,000 hours of watch time and got the
I'm
monetization
not there
going.
yet. Not there yet.
Not there.
I'm
Okay.
at
I did
3,100.
3,100. And dude, you got so you've at the time of this recording, you have 1,140 subs roughly, on 52,000 views across the channel, which just seems like a really high subscriber to view ratio. How did that happen? Do you think it's just because people really responded to your content and your focus on Medellin and Colombia? Or what would you
Well,
attribute that high subscriber count to?
I'm curious. So from my perspective, I feel almost like ashamed. I feel like, and again, I haven't like dug through. Is that a word? I haven't dug through other YouTube channels looking at like views to
Hmm.
subscribers. But so,
Hmm.
so you consider that to be a pretty high
I'd say that's a
rate?
pretty good ratio, bro, because that means that if it was all like organic, that would mean, I mean, do the math that 1 in 50 people are subscribing, which is like
Yeah,
really good. That's really good.
yeah. Actually, that's
Um,
a good way. I never thought about it like that. Yeah, that's actually really cool. Thank. um, I I don't know. Actually, I always kind of looked at it as a negative. I thought it was like, wow, that's a lot of views for not very many subscribers. But I um man, I'll be honest. My first video that hit like 1,000 views was, and looking back, like I didn't do this on purpose, but I was walking around Coyoacan in Mexico City,
mhm.
um, without. It was a Sunday afternoon in Coyoacan, and it was kind of like peak pandemic. But anyway, I wasn't wearing I wasn't wearing a mask, and I don't want to get into like COVID talks on the podcast, but yeah, I wasn't wearing a mask. But to me, I just took it at that time. It was I'm like I'm outside, and anyway, I didn't take it so serious to wear a mask outside. Anyway, a lot of this was like Mexico City was on lockdown, so everyone was just on Facebook, being keyboard warriors. So it kind of like blew up in this Facebook group, and everyone was arguing about whether I should be wearing mask. Like, oh, the stupid foreigner coming here to Mexico City and infecting the the poor Mexican people. Um, so that was like the first video that kind of
So
got
you
some
had like a
traction. Actually, got
media event.
yeah, exactly. And I got a lot of subscribers off that. I went from like 200 to like 450 or something. Um, and
Okay.
that's where you learn, like, oh, like they say, like there's no such thing as bad publicity. And again, and looking back, like I probably, I don't know, things were early in the pandemic. I probably want to do that again, but I didn't do it as like, hey, I don't have to wear a mask. Like it just people got. I was like shocked. I thought it was a funny video. We learned what a mandilon is in Mexico, which is like it is a boyfriend that gets ordered around. It's like saying like you're the apron, like the girl bosses you around. And so we were trying to
Sure.
give away an apron in the streets of Coyoacan with these two Mexican girls. And I thought like I posted, I was like, oh, it's gonna be funny, and like it blew up into this this big ordeal, like peak pandemic.
Yeah, I think if you there's like the Medellin for expats Facebook group is like the most hilarious Facebook group in the world. It's like half the posts are about like something sort of social justice oriented or whatever, like politically correct oriented. And then like part of it is just like toxic, like, or just like older dudes with like hilarious comments that I don't even know. It's hard to explain, but it's like, and it can be a bloodbath. Like you just post something and everyone's like hating. It's hilarious. It's not helpful at all. Like other expat groups,
it,
it's jokes as hell, and you can. And long story short, it can help you like blow up videos fast because if you can elicit some outrage or ideally just some interest, you can get like a lot of views and get things rolling that way.
Yeah, yes and no. So I stopped posting in Facebook groups. Not after that, but yeah, because there's so much, what's the word, toxicity. Like it's so toxic, especially like the Facebook groups are like a toxic war zone, man. So I actually stopped because I'm like, this isn't attract. No matter what it is, like I
Yeah,
want someone to find my channel because they search like, where to stay in Medellin. I don't want to just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
because
yeah.
Facebook group, no one's really looking for your content. Like they just scrolling and they see it. So yeah, I stopped with the Facebook groups because yeah, it can attract so
Yeah,
much negative
I don't want to
attention.
go like that kind of direction with the conversation, but I get there is a tip in here, a nugget for people listening, which is that Facebook groups are actually pretty gold for growing a travel channel, a YouTube channel, anything kind of in this space. It can be really really good.
It-
I wanted to go back to your journey because you definitely did like a short version of it. So you grew up in Houston, where presumably you were relatively exposed to Latin culture early on. I'm sure you had lots of friends growing up playing basketball or whatever that were like of Mexican background or Latino background. I didn't really have that much. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, so a little bit of a different diversity mix. But so you must have been sort of like, I'm guessing, sort of like exposed to it early. Maybe it felt a little bit distant at the same time, or what was it like growing up in Houston? And it's kind
yeah,
of
no,
funny now, being in a
yeah,
like
no, it's a good point.
Latin
Well, to
guy.
me, my Latino exposure was, going to Mexican restaurants, which was like a bunch of white people eating quesadillas, chicken quesadillas, and the whole staff, of course, was like Mexican. But for me, growing up playing basketball in Houston, I was really kind of more around the black culture, the hip hop, and things like that. So I kind of identified more with that because that was like my life. I mean, even though my family and like where I lived was predominantly kind of country white town, but
Hmm.
yeah, and like my free time, I was playing basketball with um, yeah, more of like the black culture. And so I was always like that. I think that's where I got kind of like, I don't know, the flow, as they say in Spanish, in Colombia. Um and then I moved to San Antonio after college. And then yeah, it was like, Latinos everywhere and Spanish everywhere. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I've been around Spanish speakers my whole life. I want to learn Spanish. So I took like a little bit, I took a private class actually when I was like 24.
Hmm.
And yeah, and reggaeton. I always loved reggaeton, and I always joke that the um like when you grow up in the U.S. You think there's like two reggaeton songs, right? Like Gasolina and Danza Kuduro, and Gasolina. Pretty much.
what
Am I
what is that? What's that second one?
Which one? You've heard it, man. It's the I don't want to butcher it, but it's like I don't want to sing it, but Danza Kuduro. That's the name of the song.
Danza Kuduro. Okay, okay, and then like some
Yeah,
Shakira, I guess.
but
Anyway, Don Omar, gotcha. Okay, okay, okay.
and you've heard it. Like when you hear it, you'll be like, "Oh yeah,
For sure, for sure, for sure.
yeah."
And
Um,
so were you like taking trips down to Mexico to go drinking when you were 19 and stuff like that?
no, no, no. I never was that. No, I was not that type of person. No, I was. I was on the straight and narrow, man. I wasn't even drinking in college. I was. Yeah, I was staying to myself, and yeah. But then I visited. I was kind of just around in San Antonio. A lot more Latinos.
Hmm.
which San Antonio is like a Tex-Mex culture. There's not like I want to call them true Latinos. Sorry, San Antonio people, but
But you got closer to the border.
yeah, yeah, and then yeah, it's like started like liking reggaeton and stuff, and then I had here's where it all changed is I had a coworker. His parents were his dad was Pakistani and his mom was from Cali, Colombia, and he
Hmm.
told me, "Hey man, go check out Colombia." And long story, I did my research and I ended up in Medellin. And then I heard like Nicky Jam songs like Travasudas, and like El Perdón. And you know, I'm like, whoa, there's like these are the coolest songs ever. Like I've never heard
Yeah.
this before. I didn't know there was more than Gasolina. So yeah, that and then I was like, man, life's over. Or I mean, in a good way, like, or you know, my life goals kind of did a 180. I was like, whoa, I love this place. And I remember going back and sitting in my cubicle basically and like just imagining like I would get excited like butterflies thinking about you know being in Medellin and yeah
Okay.
then I
Okay.
knew I was like all right I gotta move there.
So you're in San Antonio. You're in the office. I guess it's like an asset management firm. You're making your money. You're driving to work, driving everywhere because it's Texas. I guess you got a Latino buddy that's showing you a bit of reggaeton. And then what really like pushed you over to the edge to say like, you know what, I'm gonna book this first flight? Did you Was there like something specific that really like pushed you over the edge and made that epiphany to take action?
um I think when I just saw like the combination of the great weather um and then I saw like mountain views and then the reggaeton and then like you hear you know I was like 25 and you hear like oh the women are so pretty in Medellin, the most beautiful girls in the world.
Hmm.
Um, so like just kind of a combination of all that. And then you hear, oh, it's really cheap too. Like your dollar goes a long way. And I was like, man, I was like just so curious. Like, what is a bar? What is a nightclub like in Medellin?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's what kind of led me to do it. And I was and one other thing, I'd gone on kind of my first real solo trip, like not flying with my family to visit Paris. My high school buddy was working in Paris, so I got a taste of like, whoa, like I don't have to ask anyone to go if I want to go to this museum. I don't have to ask anyone or like, you know, do you want to go to this museum? Is that cool? Oh, we have to go to that. We have to go to whatever, the waterfall.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Anyway, it was like a combination of that first solo trip plus that coworker, and then game over.
Definitely. And so this, I guess, was in like 2016. This first trip, somewhere around that range. Did you
Yeah.
know about My Latin Life back then, or did you know about any of these? A couple of the online websites with. Did you know about like Roosh V Forum? I don't know. Like, what were you like consuming back then? 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah, I would say the first one. I think I came across a few My Latin Life articles, to be honest. Um, but the big one was I think it was called Medellin Living was the big blog. Yeah, Medellin Living, which has since got bought out by another guy here in Medellin. But anyway, um, Medellin Living, I read a lot. I even bought the ebook for whatever $9. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot. And it's kind of cool now. Like it comes full circle because now I'm kind of working on a premium kind of video guide and PDF and things like that to help people in Medellin. We can talk about
Hmm.
that later. But um, the yeah, I read a lot of Medellin living, and then just in general, not really relevant to Colombia, but like I read a lot of Nomadic Matt. I think everybody. I don't know. Did you read Nomadic Matt too back in the day?
He's the early guy that would like dance in front of this like different stuff.
No,
No.
he was kind of like, in my opinion, he was like the first real travel blogger, the first famous, or the first one I ever found, really. So I was,
Yeah, rings a bell. I never. Oh yeah, this guy. I never got into. Uh, I know the site now that I'm looking at it. I know the site better than I know like the guy by like his persona, I guess. That's funny. Yeah, and then you probably read every post on the site, and you're gleaning tips and you're trying to learn more about the culture. And then how did things sort of like stack up on the ground versus your expectations and what you'd read and what you knew going into it?
no, it was exceeded expectations. I mean, I stayed in Tiger Hostel in Poblado by myself. Um, yeah, the first, like, I walked in the hostel and it was like very small, like maybe 10, 15 people, but two, you know, beautiful Colombian uh, salsa teachers, like all dressed up and there to teach the gringos how to dance. Like they were doing like a little salsa show, and it really was. It was like a movie. I'm like, what? Like this is real. Like you walk in and like just the energy, and then and then I dance. I like basically checked in. I put my luggage in my room, came out, and then I'm dancing like within an hour. Of getting in my hostel, I'm dancing with these Colombian girls, and I've never been a dancer or tried to dance before. So yeah, and I mean that was the first night, and then the next day I was walking around the street and like probably not a good idea now, but a random guy started talking to me and we spoke crappy English, crappy Spanish, but he like showed me around the whole city. Didn't want anything from me. Probably maybe he did now looking back, but anyway, I was naive, I guess. But maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Maybe he was just a good person. I don't know. Or maybe he was a good person that still wanted the tip. I don't know. But yeah, and it was a blast, man. The nightlife, the energy, and being a 25, 26-year-old guy was a perfect time to come here. Um, you know, yeah, with
For sure.
and yeah,
It's just so different than what you've experienced up until that point. I mean, like Texas to Medellin, they're somewhat close on the map. They're somewhat kind of like in the Caribbean-ish area, but or Gulf of Mexico or whatever. But like, it's a whole different thing. Probably your first time, kind of like in the mountains in this like coffee and jungly, like waterfall type place, and yeah. Um, so my big question would be, why did it take you 4 years to like make your way back on a more permanent basis? Was it only really just with COVID, or did you move a bit before COVID, or
well,
like yeah,
yeah, no. Basic. What I did was I basically had call it 20,000 saved, 20,000 US dollars saved up for a house. Here I am, 25, 26, 20,000 saved up. And I look at that money. I remember it was like sitting at work in the cubicle, or whatever. And I'm looking and I'm like, that money will last me a while in Colombia, or I could buy a house. And I remember the specific example I used, I was like, okay, I could either say I moved to Colombia or whatever, move to Colombia, have this adventure, or I could be like, hey, I bought a house. You want to come check out my new tile? Like I remember I said that. Like, do I want to talk about my tile in my house or whatever, my new window, my new curtains, or do I want to
right.
like go have the adventure of a lifetime?
Hmm.
So I basically in a call it a year, like I basically dropped like I lived in Colombia. I learned Spanish. I took dance lessons. I traveled around Colombia. I traveled around Central America, but Medellin was my hub. And yeah, just call it like in a year, I blew whatever $15,000. And when I had about $4,000, $5,000 left, I limped back to the U.S. And it's kind of funny. I didn't believe in myself to be a digital. I mean, this is like 2016. I didn't believe in myself to like be a digital nomad or like work online because like I was like, man, I have to learn WordPress coding. I guess there was YouTube channels, but I guess I just didn't. It never crossed my mind that I could. I didn't believe in myself. I
Work
was like,
on.
I'm not cool enough or funny enough, whatever, to be a blogger or a YouTube travel YouTuber. So I
Okay, and I guess what I didn't understand is on this first trip in 2016, it wasn't just like a little like 1 month or something. You went like a year, or
I had like two vacations to Medellin before
okay.
I pulled the trigger. Yeah.
And then when did you
So
go to Brazil? Was that kind of 2020, 21, or was that earlier?
yeah, I visited Brazil like years ago, but yeah, I lived in Brazil in a lot of 2021.
Dope. Okay, okay. We'll come back to that. But I just wanted to make sure we had the timeline down. So you did, I guess, a couple different jaunts in 2016. You saw a couple different places, or just Colombia?
Yeah, I lived in Medellin, I lived in Santa Marta, I lived in Cali. And then I did do a kind of a quick trip through Central America. I bussed through like Costa Rica. I said that real green. Costa Rica, Guatemala, El Salvador. I kind of did all those countries, but yeah, compared to Colombia, I didn't like them that much. So
Okay. No,
I
that's dope though. Okay.
yeah
And then so you've definitely seen the light at that point of the awesomeness that is Latin America. You had spent time in several different countries, or sorry, several different cities, sorry, in Colombia, different countries through Central America. get a little bit of a difference, see what cities you like better, how things operate differently in different places, similarities and differences. So you went back to Texas and went back to working in tech. And then when did sort of the idea of like working online and working remote start to become a viable option in your head where you believe that you could make money online?
Um, well, it that didn't me thinking of like being a YouTuber, making YouTube videos, that didn't hit me until like call it even yeah, early late 20 uh yeah, late it was late 2020 was when I uploaded my first YouTube video. So,
Hmm.
but
And are
but
you working remote at this point with the tech sales
no, so
job,
what I did
or what's the income source?
the so yeah, let's go back to when I went back let's go back to call it 2016 when I finished my first kind of year in
Hmm.
Medellin, and then yeah, I'm down to like $5,000 basically
Yep.
in my bank
Yep.
account. And then I'm like, okay, I need some dollars again, and I don't believe in myself to work online. I can't be a blogger, so I go back and get a corporate job, actually in Dallas of all places. I moved from Medellin to Dallas, and I've never liked Dallas. Still don't really like Dallas that much. And so it's funny. I left my favorite city to live in like one of my least favorite cities. Um, and yeah, I did 3 years in tech basically, and I stayed there 3 years because at 3 years I got a 401k match. Like that I just told myself, okay, I'm gonna be here 3 years. Um, and then it just I thought I was gonna leave after 3 years, and then it just so happened I got a better tech job with more money than I'd ever made before. Right there on year three, and so I was like, all right, I'll take this, and just kind of milk it, see what happens. And I'm actually writing. I have a video written for this. I haven't filmed it yet, but
Hmm.
my money was hitting my account a lot, but it wasn't a very good experience. Just as a being being, I wasn't good at that job. The company wasn't that good. It was just a bad situation all around. So I end up leaving that, and that's when, like, I left that like a month before COVID hit, and I moved to Tulum. It was the only place open. I wanted to go to Spain, but closed. So I ended up in Tulum,
Hmm.
and I met a YouTuber who does like VPN YouTube stuff in Tulum. I bet you may have met him before. A guy's named Scott, but anyway, uh, and Scott, he kind of inspired me. Basically, he told me about what he does and how he does it, and I was like, all right, if I want to keep traveling the world for my whole life or stay out of the US or, whatever, I was like, I got to figure something out. So I was like, all right, YouTube it is. And yeah. And so that's when I started making it's Mexico City Open right now and just making videos in Mexico. And yeah, that's how I got started.
Nice.
So
And then, so what have you been? So what's like other than YouTube? Do you make money through like working as a freelancer or doing sales stuff, or what else?
yeah, so I haven't had a corporate job in 2 years, and most of my income has come from investments, mutual funds. And then I have an Upwork video editing profile. I've done a few projects. I just finished a project for a personal training buddy in Houston. He was doing some pad thai recipe. So I edited that for him, made some money. And then like I met a girl in Tulum. She just hit me up. She has like 100 travel videos she wants me to edit. So I'm working on that. But yeah, most of my income still is in investments, comes from that. Um, and yeah, and then I'm trying to grow this YouTube thing and sell a basically a premium guide to Medellin. That's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, get some digital products going.
And
Okay.
yeah, so I'm like,
And go ahead.
it hasn't been pretty. Like my money situation hasn't been pretty the last 2 years. Like I haven't had to work, but like it's not like I'm just um, I haven't been making money, but I've been surviving until like because I'm willing to go all in on myself because like I'm like anything I can do to not return to the U.S. corporate world and be told what to wear, what to say, what to do, where to be. I'm like, I'm willing to, yeah, lose money if it means in the long run that I'll work for myself and work online.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the best things about Latin America is it gives you an opportunity to be scrappy and to actually have a really good life and a really high standard of living on not that much money. And people would be surprised how much you can scale down in terms of how little you could spend per month and have a nice life. Because it's important to always keep in mind. I mean, most people in Latin America have a minimum wage of between $300 and $400 US per month, and so they might have like they might be spending like 125, $150 on rent, and then kind of like the rest on food, and you can live like super cheap in Latin America if you're willing to live a really, really local life. And then obviously you can, as you can do that for a while, be scrappy, build your business. Maybe $300, $400 obviously sounds extreme, but you can uh, easily get by on like 700, $800 a month in like pretty much anywhere in Latin America. Build your business, and if you want, you can sort of like expand your lifestyle over time. I think it is always good to kind of like live like a student and keep some of those elements of, maybe one night you stay in a luxury hotel, but then another night you stay in a hostel or you crash on your buddy's floor. And it's so I'm kind of there where sometimes I have like a lot of luxury, sometimes I'm doing it more student style. But that's the digital nomad lifestyle a little bit, is you definitely have the flexibility, and you can sort of like scale up and scale down the luxury at a moment's notice.
Yeah, no, you're right. And when I was in the corporate world, I was making good money, and I became a zombie. Like it was, basically. I mean, let's be honest. You respond to emails, you make money. You're not really having to like critically think. You're not having to solve problems. You're not having to create a market for yourself. And yeah, then I was going out on the weekends, partying, basically drinking, going out on the weekdays too, but having a good time. But like I wasn't growing, as a as an entrepreneur, definitely not. So now my motivation, actually, just yesterday, the motivation that hit me was like I remember being in college. I was super poor. Well, in college, like I mean,
Mhm.
relative to Latin America, but you get what I'm saying. But like in college, like
Yeah, everyone's a little bit broken, looking for the dollar beers or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and that's been my like just this week. You're always looking for new ways to motivate yourself. And I remember
Mhm.
some, I would say rich sorority girls invited me to like go to their semi-formal or formal, whatever. And I remember like all in my view, it was like with the rich boys too. We're going and like they all had like suits and stuff. Like we're in college, like 19 years old, and like they all had like suits, and I'm like, we're in college. Like how? Like, I remember thinking like, how do you have a suit in college? Like we're not interviewing yet. We're freshmen in college, and I remember thinking like I felt like very. I remember I don't know what I did. Like I had to like borrow someone's dress shoes or something. I remember thinking, and so that's like that was my motivation. This week. I was like, man, like don't forget where you came from or that moment. I was like, I don't ever want to get back to that point where I'm having to like borrow dress shoes or and I was like, yeah. So that was my motivation this week. Yeah, because you always got to find new ways to motivate yourself.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I rushed a frat, and you have to wear like a suit and tie like all the time when you're in a frat or rushing a frat. And I remember like the day you sort of like get accepted or whatever. I wore the most mismatched suit you'd ever seen, bro. I had like the collared shirt was like orange and blue stripes. I had like a silver tie, and then like a gray like pinstripe blazer or something. I looked like a clown
Dang,
because I was like, "Ugh,"
dang,
like
yeah. Wow, those colors, man. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, you're in college, right? So it's like it's new to you that formal wear like that is new, and you don't have the money to be buying a nice suit. So yeah,
As jokes. And so you came back to Colombia a bunch of years later. How was it different? It must have been super different. In 2016 it was relatively undiscovered, quite low international arrivals, relatively low amounts of tourists in 2016, but the word was starting to get out. Maybe it was on the cover of Condé Nast or big travel magazines, and probably by 2019 it was like full steam. So maybe you came back to a Colombia that was almost prepared for you as prepared as you were for it, because they were kind of used to gringos at this point, and the cafes in Poblado were full of people speaking English. And I mean, what was the difference like?
Yeah, I mean, here in 2022, like I feel like I'm that old guy, like, oh, this hostel, this whatever rooftop pool hostel, 20 stories wasn't here, back in 2016. Like, I'm that guy now, and actually, I kind of have a challenge for like people coming to Medellin now is like, hey, see if you're a foreigner, see if you can go to an actual club and not see a foreigner. See if you can find only Colombians in that club, and probably you're not going to find it. But yeah, it's honestly like I think I need to like sit down and be like, Kyle, you have to accept it that Medellin's not what it used to be. It's discovered. I mean, here's my the big thing I've seen is that like I'm starting to see like what I would call sorry American girls, but like basic American girls. Like Medellin is now a stop for like what I would say basic American girls, like Tulum, and then like, oh, we're going to Medellin next. Like it's no longer just like guys coming here to party and stuff. Like, girls are coming there for the coffee. Like
That's a good
I met
point.
like
That's a good point. That
yeah, I met
it's not just guys anymore. It's couples. It's groups of girls. It's older people, business
yeah, I met
people.
these like Georgia girls that were here for like, a wedding, I guess. And I don't know, it was probably a Colombian American getting married, I think. But still, like the fact that they were here and they're like basically doing like, brunch activities, like all these things that like, you never saw like American girls going to brunch in Medellin. So that's been the big one to me, the fact that there's just like American girls coming now. And it's another stop on it's a stop now on the Tulum. What's the Costa Rica place everyone goes? The um, Santa
Tamarindo,
Teresa.
Puerto Viejo, yeah.
Yeah,
Anything in Costa Rica, really. But
yeah,
yeah, Medellin's definitely become a spot. I think it's fair to say easily one of the top five digital nomad hubs and communities in Latin America. It would be, Playa del Carmen, where I am, Medellin, where you are. Um, you know, the rest of the list is a little bit debatable, but those two
yeah,
are like for sure there, right?
yeah, yeah. And on that note, like, yeah, I mean, Medellin has a lot. I mean, I feel like you don't even need a co-working in Medellin. I feel like there's a lot of cafes that have great Wi-Fi, and
Hmm.
obviously you don't want to like take advantage of the coffee shop, and you don't want to post up there 10 hours a day and order one coffee. But I always try to be mindful of that, and if I'm hanging out, to make sure I'm ordering stuff to support the businesses here. Um, but yeah, I think Medellin is the Wi-Fi here is great, especially compared to a lot of other Latin American cities. So
Hmm. I know you've made a couple of so you by the way for everyone listening, you host a series called Medellin Mondays, where I guess you do sort of a Q&A every Monday. Um, Let me break down a couple things I don't like about Medellin, and maybe you could let me know what your thoughts are on this. Um, I'd say for me the big one is it is a very big dense city, and basically the whole like it's an interesting almost European city construct where the inner core is actually quite rich, or at least a lot of the rich areas are in the core, and then like everywhere up on the hills is like pretty much favela, or like or like favela, luxury favela. I don't know. So it's like all these like hilly areas, and they can just literally come down on the motorbike anytime and like rob people. And if you go in those Medellin expat groups, like every single day, like just some guy on like a motorcycle with a gun is just coming down to Poblado, shit like that. Another of the cons is like the it just sort of like I guess you could call it like what's the word? But like the rich poor dynamic. Another thing would be like the scoping, and I forget how to say it, scopolamine,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just insane. It's insane how prevalent it is. If people aren't familiar with it, basically it's sort of like a liquid that people can put in your drinks, or even just sort of like spray in your face as like a mist, and you basically become like a zombie, and you're basically in a trance, and then people can rob you. and it's insane. And it's like a whole industry in Medellin and Colombia at large, uh, which is just insane. And it makes me not want to be there for that. And then, yeah, start with that.
Yeah.
um,
So the let's start with the scopolamine. I always say it weird too. Scopolamine.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, scope. We are just getting scoped, right? So everyone listening, let me tell you, and I say this on my Medellin Mondays. I say this in my videos, and it's real simple. Like the guys that get scoped, and again, it could happen to anybody. I'm not immune, so there's that. But like, it's always. I mean, there's drugs and there's prostitutes involved, and or meeting up with a Tinder girl. Like Tinder here is like 80% dangerous. Like girls on Tinder are like hunting to not all of them, but like 80%, like 75% are
Yeah.
there to like somehow either drug you and get and steal your stuff, or well, that's a big percentage. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for
That's
that.
a very high
But
percentage. It's probably lower, but it's probably like the highest percentage in all the Americas, the percentage of people who are like kind of like in like this organized, industrialized, like rip off gringos sort of frame of mind on the platform. And you got to be super careful.
yeah, and I had a buddy text me today, and I gave him a heads up. One red flag to look for, guys listening, is like if a girl tells you she has her own driver, like you're trying to meet up at somewhere, and she's like, "Oh, I have my own driver. You know, he's going to charge you like 30,000 pesos to, that's Colombian
Hmm.
pesos." Yeah, that's a big red flag. Like,
That's a huge
um,
red flag.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or even if it's like supposedly a cab and she's like, get in my cab,
yeah,
be like, no, 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 get out. We're gonna take a different cab. I
yeah,
And you can make an excuse like, oh, I just want to get a water first or something, but you don't even like hop in a cab that the person was in.
exactly. So and yeah, it's funny that the same buddy told me like a week ago, like I need to Google this, but like kind of a random aside about scopolamine, like I guess like if they put something in your drink, everyone like something like the ice will fall down to the bottom, or maybe it might be more fizzy. Like your drink might be like
Christ.
slightly fizzing more. I need to Google that one to actually like.
I don't
But
even want to have to like visually determine if it's there. That's insane.
yeah, but I'm telling you, like the guys, like there's just a lot of like dumb guys that come here and they get a match, and
Yeah.
it's maybe the cutest girl they've ever matched with, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, let's meet up at all cost." And then yeah, they get scoped, or I mean that's what happens. And so I think you have to do your research up front, you know, on Tinder. Like I always say, video call with the girl first before you meet up with her. But yeah, I think if you have a good head on your shoulders, I don't think you'll be put in those situations. But just a lot of guys, they come down here and they don't think they, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll get into the good parts of Medellin too, but I definitely, I think it's funny because it's a unique situation in Latin America. It's kind of Colombia's kind of the only country where this is like a thing, and
yeah, especially Medellin.
so yeah, especially Medellin. So it's just something to look out for. Um, and then yeah, I remember I spent a month in Medellin in 2021. I was there around like March, April. It was a good time. It was a good time. I went up to Santa Marta and stuff as well.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. Um, what I liked a lot was how there was actually a lot of day trips, and there's a lot of things you can do. Just getting slightly out of town. There's a couple like small pueblos that are like really super cool with cobblestone streets and colonial buildings and stuff like that. I'm sure you've had some time to explore some of those. Um, and I always like looking for waterfalls and like miradores and stuff and cool lookout points. And Medellín's good for that as well.
yeah. I mean, Guatape did you go to Guatape?
No, I couldn't because it's funny. When I was there, excuse me, I got there the day before the protest started.
Mm,
And so I didn't know that that was going to be going on when I got there. But then when I got there, there was like, burning blockades on the highway and you couldn't get out of town. So I had to limit my day trip expeditions and do stuff around town. But I still got up to RV, I think it's called, and
Yeah.
I did like I knocked out like a lot of the stuff. But
Let's talk about that for a second. Well, voice cut. Let's talk about that for a second. What did how like what did you like about that? Like Parky RV, like did you really like it? And if you did, why?
yeah, man, I did like I'm really good about like I work a normal Monday to Friday job. But I really like doing at least something new every day, just like a small mini adventure every day. And then on weekends, I try to knock out those sort of bigger, like all day trips. So I think Parque RV I did on a weekend. I thought it was really cool taking the cable
Yeah.
car. So basically like there's Parque RV is like this park that's on top of the hill. So like Medellin is like in the bottom like of the valley, and then on the top of the mountain, on the very top of the mountain, is Parque RV, and it's actually like a very different climate because it's got to be like 1,000 meters or more elevated above the Medellin whatever city level. So it's a bit of a different climate, more pine trees and stuff like that. And I thought it was dope. I mean, it's very accessible by public transportation. You can take the Medellin subway to the cable car. You hop right on the cable car. You go up. As I was alluding to before, you're going up and you're going up the hill, and it looks like Rio de Janeiro. You're just like flying over top of these like favelas, and it's crazy. And there's just you really get to feel how big Medellin actually is. Like when you're down in the core in Poblado and Laureles, it doesn't feel you don't have a full grasp of how big the city is. But once you get above and you're looking from a mirador or from the cable car, you see, damn, like there's a lot of people in this city. This is a big city. Um, and then you get up there, and I rode a horse, and I just went up to some guy and I was like, hey, like I'm just curious, like how much does it cost to like ride the horse? And he said like $10, and I was like, okay, $5, you know what I mean? And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, let's do it. And then we're off, and we go and we go, and he's like, oh, I'll show you this like waterfall, blah blah blah. So I'm like, this is sick. I'm like on the back of a horse for like literally like $5. I was something like that, maybe even less. It was so cheap. I was like, this is dope. We're on the back of a horse. We get down to the waterfall, and he's like, oye, eres canadiense? I'm like, yeah, I'm Canadian. He's like, pues, ¿te gusta fumar? And I'm like, a veces. And he just like whips out a little something to fumar. And I was like, this is jokes. Like, I'm like on a horse at a waterfall. I spent like, and this dude's like smoking me out. And this was like very economical. Like, I was like, this is hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
very Medellin
That's
experience.
that's the best. That's awesome, man. That's the best Parque RV experience I've ever heard. So that's yeah, I can see why you like it. That's pretty cool, man. But
I
and let
mean,
me tell you,
yeah, good. Yeah.
I was gonna say everyone listening or watching, yeah, I've been to Parque RV like 4 times, and I'm always like I'm disappointed in the actual like arriving there. Like, yes, you're around like green, lush trees, but like uh in Spanish, like lo que falta, or like what it's lacking is like there's not like the view is like on the metro cable, but when you get to the Parque RV, like you want a view or like well a waterfall. I guess you found the waterfall. I haven't found the waterfall, but like it has some trails, but it's not like it's like I don't know. To me, I haven't found like a good hiking trail in Parque RV with a good view. Like
Hmm.
anyway, I think the best part is in my opinion, the best part is the metro cable ride to Parque RV. But getting there is a little underwhelming, in my opinion. But if someone out there knows something super cool or a good view, let us know. But that's been my experience.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty dope. And I mean, that's not the only one. You go down to Envigado, and even sort of at the uh, on the other side of Envigado, it goes up into the mountains, and there's waterfalls and like some like church on a hill and stuff like that, just behind the city in Envigado. So if you're down in the south of the city, if you're near Sabaneta, if you're near
Was it-
Envigado, there's like dope stuff in the mountains up there too.
Yeah, but but everyone that's listening, that's far from Parque Arvi. That's a
It is.
different.
It is. It's the other side
Yeah,
of the city. But I
yeah,
mean, the city's in a valley, and then basically you're surrounded by these like mini mountains. And I think pretty much. And what's cool is obviously there's Uber in Medellin, and so you can just take a $5 Uber, get up to the top of the mountain on one of the sides, and there's going to be some cool shit.
yeah.
Maybe so I definitely like that. I like drinking the coffee. I'm curious if you've spent some time actually in the Coffee Triangle down in Manizales and Pereira, Armenia, and how you kind of stack up life there. Or, I receive actually a lot of questions saying, "A, what's the best city in the Coffee Triangle of the three or four that there are?" And I receive a lot of questions like, "Should I go to a big city or should I go chill in the Coffee Triangle?" So, what would your thoughts be on that?
Yeah, I'll tell you straight up. I haven't spent much time there. I've only spent one night in Pereira. I had a friend from like 2015 that is working there now, and I
Mhm.
told her like I would go visit her, and it worked out. Um, it worked out where it was just like a basically like a random Friday night, and I took a bus down there, and then came back on Saturday. So I have not. I can't really speak much to. I just know Pereira is like the capital of that area, and that's where I went. And we went out, and so I saw some nightlife there. And everyone always says Pereira is like a little Medellin. You're not gonna have as good a flights. You're not gonna have as many conveniences as Medellin. But yeah, I think if you want to, but yeah, last thing I'll say is like I think for people that want to chill, get away from like the big city of Medellin, but still kind of have like a little big town, then
Mhm.
Pereira, is probably for you. So
So what keeps you in Medellin? Do you feel are you the type of guy that you really sort of like need a base and you just feel more productive spending like multi months in one spot? Um, do you feel like really really committed to Colombia at this point, or are you sort of like itching to explore more of Latin America, or even or like what's sort of your travel plans for 2022?
yeah, right now I am really focused on like exploring every nook and cranny of Medellin. I frankly I'm tired of like changing Airbnbs, changing Wi-Fi situations.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, even just like the check-in check out process of Airbnb. Like I'm tired of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, right now Medellin is my hub, and I have the vision of just like I already I I already know a lot about Medellin, but I'm still like I want to know like every rooftop bar, every pool bar, every great coffee shop. Where's the good Wi-Fi? And then I'm putting all that into a
A
Medellin
product.
kind of premium guide that'll be a Facebook group with me in it if you buy it, so you can actually talk to me directly and the group.
Yep.
A PDF if you want to read it, and then also a video guide so you can actually see it. So that's what I'm working on right now. I feel like before I die, I have to like share everything I know about Medellin with, I don't want to say the world, but people that want to know because it's going to be premium. Yeah, I'm not really, and actually now I have so much like camera equipment now. Like anyway, I don't like traveling with all that, video
Yeah.
editing laptop, and lights and this microphone and then my Sony camera and the list goes on and on. It's like it never stops. So I'm not really into like bouncing around all the time. I have a good basketball group here, which I get a lot of. I have good friends from that and good physical benefits, obviously. So yeah, I have a good like normal life in Medellin. So I'm not too keen on like hopping on a bus with a backpack right now.
Definitely, I definitely back it. Danny Rusty and Danny Boo Boo just bought an apartment in Medellin. Got his residency. Currently waiting on his cedula. Are you still doing the tourist visa thing? Have you been looking at sort of regularizing getting like a residency visa?
I'm on the tourist visa right now, and then in the next month I'll probably look into or do the process of like a student visa, get another year maybe. Um, yeah, because right now I'd have to leave in June, and if I don't do some more paperwork or a different visa, so yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
Okay, definitely makes sense. And what have you learned about the student visa and how that one works? you would sign up for like a Colombian school for like what Spanish classes or something.
Yeah, it's I've heard so like yeah, I've heard there's one language school that is kind of more lax on like making you go to class, or whether it's, or maybe if you do it's like online. Um and actually kind of a random twist of events, if I haven't looked at what languages they offer, but I speak Portuguese, Spanish, English, and my French is like I'm kind of fluent in French, and so anyway, I might try like a different language. Like actually, in Mexico, I started Russian like a year ago. I started learning Russian. So anyway, I might try to just pick like a random language, and hopefully through the language school, I could do that. So maybe I can actually get something out of it. But yeah, it's for a year, and I think I might just pay like the. I know someone that did it. I might just pay his lawyer to do it for me. So
Yeah,
there's no.
that dude, that's a good point because I mean, I'm thinking about this now, thinking out loud a bit, and you know, a lot of the nomad capitalist type websites, they really focus on investor visas and buying real estate and stuff like that. But you got to buy real estate cash. It's a pretty long process. It's like a huge amount of money for most people. And then there's like pensioner visas, the pensionado and rentista visas,
Yeah,
but not everyone has those income streams, and or maybe does it just doesn't fit for a lot of people's situations. But the student visa can pretty much work for anyone because it, as long as like the country has it, depending on the rules, like hopefully you can just sign up for a class. You know, due to COVID, hopefully it's mostly online anyway. Maybe you just show up like once to, you know, get some papers or something, and you know you just throw down like $1,500 and boom, and you know you're good. And sure, maybe it's not as permanent as an investor visa or something like that, but it'll give you time in the country, and then you know when you have more time on the country you can continue to build contacts, see how things work, and sort of like find another way to like keep things going. But yeah, at least so yeah, I mean, I think student visas makes a lot of sense, and I think it's something that actually in my Latin life, I'm gonna have to focus on a little bit in getting that information dug up and dispersed and shared to people about how to do the student visas.
yeah, and here's a real life situation for you, and someone's probably going to check me on this because I haven't like done my research, so I probably shouldn't say it before I did my research. But like, let's just say I'm living in Medellin on a student visa. Like, I like the idea of keeping all my money in the U.S. Like, I don't want to have to pay taxes in Colombia with like you said, the investment visa, the business visas.
Yeah,
So like, and then the foreign income tax exclusion, right?
yep,
So yeah, it's like if I can somehow generate, say, uh, for those that don't know, it's basically like if you live outside the U.S. for most of the year, you don't have to pay taxes on like $110,000 of income. So it's like, I mean, that's a great spot. I don't know, maybe but I mean, hey, if I'm making 110,000 from digital products and I'm on a student visa in Medellin, it's like you're not even paying income tax. There's probably that sounds too good to be true, but um,
yeah. The only sort of like so I've been dealing with the FEIE, the foreign earned income exclusion, for a number of years now. Originally, because I'm a Canadian American dual citizen and I was living in Canada and I was paying taxes in Canada, but just I had to fill out that stuff and file a U.S. return. I then later switched my residency to the U.S. and was working for an American company. And then, you know, I got into, so I was familiar with the FEIE sort of in a more like traditional way, not in like a tax savings type of way. Um, and then now, like, it's something that I don't want to divulge too much on this podcast, but yeah, it's something that I've been working with for a couple of years now with my Latin situation. And the one thing that's a little bit tricky is they kind of say that you need a tax home outside the United States. Um,
got it. There's the
yeah,
catch.
yeah, that's the catch. So there needs to be like somewhere else where there's like activity going on a little bit. I'm not, but I also know that like some people just say like, and it's a really undiscovered part of it, or not even talked about part of it, because a lot of people just say, oh, spend less than 30 days a year in the States and you're good, right? Spend 11 months a year abroad, you're good. Boom, first 110 free. I think there's like this tax home thing that makes it a little bit more nuanced, and most people don't get into that. So it's a little bit of that's like the main thing that I would like bring up with like your tax advisor, and I think it's something that at my Latin life we're gonna start working on more. As you know, like we're just really sort of getting started again in 2022 here. I'm gonna start making relationships with some of these international tax guys because you don't want a normal U.S. Born and bred Houston guy doing your taxes when you know the whole crux of your tax return is really going to be like, are you acceptable to the FEIE? Because that's going to make a huge difference. Because that's probably going to be like 15 to 20 grand per year that you're saving. So you really want a guy that really knows that particular like policy like super well and can guide you on what to do.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and
hopefully
yeah,
that's helpful for people.
yeah, it's nice to see like there are like digital nomad CPAs nowadays, which is kind of cool to see. So,
Yeah, you're gonna
uh,
want something more like that. Those
yeah,
guys
yeah,
just start charging a lot of money, but I mean, if anyone knows a really good one, get in touch with My Latin Life through any of our platforms, and I'll see what I can do because I think this is really this is like some of the most crucial information for digital nomads is sort of taxes, and everyone wants to think they can pay zero now that they're a digital nomad. Um, the reality is yeah, I think experienced help. This might be the situation to get some.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, tough to
I
avoid
think you should
taxes.
definitely make some videos about it on your channel. Um, I wanted to come back to sort of like your vision of the channel in the future, and but I wanted to quickly ask you about language learning because I guess you're a bit of a language learning enthusiast. You cover basically the four I cover: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese. Um, how big of your Latin life, your time in Latin America, is about learning the language? Is it really important you to reach like full fluency? And like, is that a big part of the intellectual like motivation to live abroad?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm at the point where I don't want to go to a country where I don't speak the language because I feel like, you know, if I go to that country, I feel like I'll only consume like 10%. And I think I'm missing out like on 90% of what the country can offer if you can't speak the language. And I mean,
Hmm.
that's probably, not accurate, but like I'd love to go to Turkey. I can't speak Turkish, but they speak Turkish. I don't even know. Anyway, but uh yeah, I think
The
it's
bigger
really
question is like, do you want to learn the language there? And that's why like somewhere like Turkey doesn't interest me because I don't really want to learn Turkish or Greek. I like the sort of bigger languages that cover a lot of ground. So kind of like the United Nations languages that are spoken
yeah,
in dozens of countries. So yeah, Turkish is spoken in a couple places, but bad example. But you know what I mean.
yeah,
So like that's why I do really like. I like focusing my time in places where I want to learn the language. So that's why you're never really going to see me spending big time in Latvia or something like that. Cause I
yeah,
just, you know what I mean? Like it's a completely different dynamic for you as the traveler because, um, it's like, are you in a place where you're practicing your languages or are you in a place where you're basically just giving English lessons?
yeah. Um, well, and for me, my motivation was being from Texas, like, and once you travel to like South America, you start seeing like America, as Canada down to Argentina. The whole you see it as like one continent. Like we were taught in Houston that there's North America and South America. What do they teach in Toronto? Or I don't know where you
Yeah,
went
and
to.
in Canada, they also teach that it's two continents, that there are seven in total: North America, South America. Uh, I think this might be a surprise to some listeners that in Latin America, they just consider the Americas one continent and they think there's only six continents. And they just call it like El Continente. and
Yeah,
And it makes sense because you could walk from Canada to Argentina if you had time. You could literally walk the whole thing.
New video
You
idea.
know, I mean, it
um,
would take you a while. You would need some time, but it's one like contiguous landmass, and so I get where they're coming from. But it sort of leads to a different mindset where the two continent mindset sort of creates a bit of like a us versus them dynamic. Whereas if you think of it as one contiguous continent, it's more like, oh, we're all in this together. It's not English versus Spanish. It's just one big happy family.
yeah, and so once I kind of that changed my mind a little bit. Once I lived in Latin America, I started seeing as like all America, especially relative to the rest of the world, right? Like,
Mhm.
Argentina and the USA have a lot more in common than like, the USA and you know China or a lot of other countries. So I told myself, I was like, I want to go anywhere on my continent and speak the language. And yeah, I don't know a lot of indigenous languages, but like, I can go to Canada and speak French or Haiti, and then yeah, obviously Spanish, Colombia,
Yeah.
Mexico, Portuguese, and Brazil. So that was like like I talked about earlier, finding motivation. I was like, okay, that kind of motivates me to learn those languages.
Yeah, all the
Um,
languages that make you good in the hood anywhere in the Americas.
yeah, which sounds pretty badass to say, honestly. Like,
Yeah, I think of
um,
it that way too.
yeah. So I wanted to start there. Then I'm like, okay, then if I want to learn, Russian or places further away from home, then I can do that if I want to. So, um, yeah, I think it's really, but yeah, bottom line, I think it's really important in the language. If you're going somewhere, I mean, the songs, the music, ordering at a restaurant, knowing the food, and yeah, it's a night and day difference for your experience if you know the language.
And what would be your number one tip for learning languages?
Good question. I would say find a teacher that you're physically, well, sorry, this is more than one, but regularly meet with a teacher that you, as my grandpa would say, that it's easy on the eyes for you, so that you're like physically attracted to, but not like not in a bad way, but just someone that's easy to look at for you because you need all the help you can get. And so I think if you have like an attractive girl, you're gonna pay attention more than if it's just you're meeting with like Juan from Mexico to teach you
Hmm.
Spanish.
And so, were you getting like formal lessons, or were you just sort of learning within like friend groups?
No, I did. I have a process. I made one video on this, but I have a process that is 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, 2 hours a day with a private teacher, and you can be fluent in 2 months. So I've done that. I've done that with Spanish, Portuguese, and French. So um, I learned French in Tulum. Actually, I found a French teacher in Tulum, and I met with her Monday to Thursday. And at the end of it, in 2 months, I could talk for over 5 minutes in French. But my French is kind of not so hot now. But that was um, that was 2 years ago. But yeah, I have a that process has worked for me.
Okay, and so one more time: Monday to Thursday lessons, and then Friday to Sunday.
Off like or Friday Sunday is between the lines, right? That's on go out and go on Tinder or Bumble dates and practice. But
Practice.
Mon-
Yeah,
Monday to Thursday in person private lessons for 2 hours. Yeah, and in
2
Latin
hours a
America that
day.
stuff's cheap. What?
Yeah, 2 hours a day. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there's a big myth that people think to learn a language it needs to take you 2 years, a year and a half, and it's like it's bullshit. Honestly, like you can learn in 2 months, and but yeah, 2 hours a day, Monday to Thursday for 2 months.
And I don't know why this made me think of it, but when people say like "cuánto tiempo llevas in Medellin," do you say like 5 years or do you say like a year? It's a bit tricky for you to say.
You're totally right, man. I'm so glad you said that. So I always say, man, I don't know. I always say I've probably lived here 3 years of my life. I always say that like he vivido aquí 3 años. But then I tell him like I first got here in 2015. So just to give him some perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I I have to say something similar because I have like a couple different spots, and I'll just say like como voy y vengo, like yo
Yeah,
come and
yeah.
go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hoy vengo desde como 3 años, you know?
Yeah, 'cause this digital nomad world, even between digital nomads or foreigners, like or whatever people, Americans or Canadians, like yeah, it's so our mind we want to put people in boxes, but it isn't the digital nomad world just messes that all up. We can't do it
Yeah,
because we're
it's hard to formulate responses not only to like how long have you been here, but also what do you do and where do you live, where are you from? All these questions, you have the opportunity to sort of rethink when you become location independent and start working online, living abroad, traveling Latin America.
yeah, yeah. The where do you live one's famous, right? Or like I meet a Colombian girl, and they're like, she's like, oh, so you live here? You live here? I'm like, yes, I live here. But then it's like, so you're never leaving? It's like, I don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah, you should probably say I'm never leaving. They want to know. They want to know you're
yeah,
around. That's another hot tip. Is you always just say you live there,
yeah, exactly.
even if
Like,
you don't. If I took a, I've never been to Peru. If I showed up tomorrow and I got in the cab, I'd be like, "See, vivo en Lima." Like like
yeah, yeah,
just
exactly.
it
New
can help.
job.
um, Yeah, and say something vague like, "Oh, I'll pass the summer here," some shit like that. Okay, so moving right along. So, what is the vision for the Travel Money Guy for 2022 and beyond? So, I know you got the course or the kind of the whole community that you want to build up around that. Are you going to brand the community like a different name or? Um,
Good question. So right now, like the guide, so this Medellin guide, right now the best name I have for it is like Medellin Select. Um, because I'll be honest, like I don't want to give my favorite spots away just like to the internet. I don't want to give it to everyone. Um, I want people, the new guys in Medellin that are coming, the new people that value my insight on Medellin. I want them to have it, but I don't want to just give it like I don't want to give away good spots to just anyone on the internet. So my the I'm actually debating on what to do with the Facebook group. Do I call it like right now? I created one called the Travel Money Group, but I haven't like no one's in it yet. I haven't like gone that way, but because it's kind of the same as the Travel Money Guy, right? But I might call it Medellin Select. But then my long term vision is like go to another city. Like I like Mexico City a lot and do a guide there. But then I'd rather just have everyone in the same group because I think if people like me, they like my content, they're willing to pay for premium content, then I think we all, if we have 100 guys in that group, or even 1,000, like we all can help each other out and say, oh, this bar in Mexico City is closed now, but the new one is here. That coffee shop, the Wi-Fi sucks, but the coffee slaps. Obviously a whole group can help each other a lot more than just I can.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an important point. It's something that I'm thinking about a lot for my Latin life as well as I'm starting to build this up. And I could make sort of a country specific product, like the living in Mexico product, the living in Panama product, etc. Or I could make something a little bit more general, like LATAM enthusiasts or whatever. And so I think maybe you'd have my thought process is you'd have like maybe a larger group. Niche is sort of like niche but medium large or medium inclusive, and then you can launch like different products to them. So you'd have maybe like the LATAM money, or you'd have the travel money group, and then you launch the Medellin product at them. So sort of like niche products, but then like a slightly larger community that's potentially open to like multiple different products. That's how I'm thinking about it a bit, but I'm no expert.
yeah. There's a number of ways to do it, but one guy, you had Tusk on here, right?
I went on his account. I streamed on his account. We're gonna have him on for like a My Latin Life podcast, but no, I spoke on his account.
Yeah, well, I met Tusk like a year ago in Rio de Janeiro, and so one thing he does is like he throws. I don't know if he thinks about it or if he just like I think he just throws like any guy he meets, he puts him in a WhatsApp group, and it's not even like business wise. He doesn't like put his content in that WhatsApp group, but yeah. So it was like this WhatsApp group of like 100 plus guys, and everyone's just like, oh hey, I'm leaving Rio de Janeiro, I'm going to Berlin, or I'm leaving Berlin, I'm going to Madrid, and like yeah,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, oh, I'm in Madrid, and I that was kind of like what spurred my vision. I'm like, you know, and again, back to what I said, like I want it to be a select group of people. I don't want it to be anyone on the internet. And so if it's people that like me, they like my content, and they have $100 or so to buy the guide, like those are the type of people I probably want to hang out with in any, whether it's Mexico City or Playa del Carmen or wherever. I think that gets rid of a lot of just like the people you probably don't want to hang out with. So that's my vision.
Yeah, I like it. It's an interesting space to build a community because you got to keep it clean and everything, but I think there's definitely a lot of value for guys to meet up, find travel partners, potentially business partners, people to work with, things like that. So I 100% agree.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, I'll speak for myself, but yeah, digital nomads. I mean, we can be like lonely as like we can be super lonely. You're changing cities. Um, your dating life is changing. Like, yeah, I mean, and so I think that is. I know personally, I've had periods, especially during pandemic lockdowns and stuff, where yeah, I've had periods where yeah, I'm lonely, and you're looking for community. We're community, minded creatures, and so yeah, I think that's another problem I want to solve. Not just telling you where to go, what to do, but also having that community where you can get together to watch a football game or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a couple websites out there, of course, Nomad List. My friend has a new company called Adventurely, where you can sort of find travel partners. You can also look for hustle houses, hacker houses, kind of like co-living situations where maybe there's a couple digital nomads or expats living together in a house, and it's good to find like 1 month accommodations and stuff like that in places like that. But yeah, it's definitely growing. I mean, the number of digital nomads is growing exponentially. Month over month, year over year. The amount of people from North America um, traveling to and moving to Latin America is just going to continue to grow. It's a no brainer, really, when you can basically cut your expenses down by like 80%, have a higher standard of living, better weather, better adventures, friendlier people, better nightlife, you know, cheap fruit and like better fruit and vegetables because it never
Yeah,
went on a
real
container.
food.
Real food didn't come on a container ship frozen
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
bananas you have at home. It literally just like came in a truck and never was frozen, and it tastes way better.
yeah,
Latin America is just way, way better. And, as long as there's Wi Fi, you can get your job done and, spend the rest of your day surfing and everything and on any level of budget. So I think it's an absolute no brainer. Same time zone. I think it's an absolute no brainer for people from Canada and the US to at least sort of set up like a second base, at least sort of start getting your feet wet, learning more about Latin America. There's definitely a little bit of like a cultural divide where there's not too much interaction between American and Latin American culture. At least historically, there hasn't been. I think reggaeton's actually reducing that barrier a little bit. Like you would never hear Latin music in a New York nightclub, 5 years ago or whatever, and now you'll hear J Balvin or whatever in a New York
yeah,
nightclub, in a Chicago
yeah.
nightclub, in a Dallas nightclub. So I think the world's getting smaller for sure. Um, yeah. Any other last thoughts or things you want to mention?
No, I would just say anyone that's watching or listening, uh, I appreciate y'all at least, uh, being on this. There's no shortage of content out there nowadays between all the platforms, and so anyone that's taking the time to listen or watch this, I really appreciate it. And um, but yeah, and for me, yeah, I'm in Medellin. If you have any questions, if anyone has any questions about Medellin, let me know. You can leave a comment on my channel. Actually, Vance, I'm not sure what other if you had any other topics you wanted to talk about today.
No, no. I think we'll wrap it up here. I mean, again, I'm here with Kyle, the travel money guy. It's at the travel money guy on Instagram. The YouTube channel is also the travel money guy. And yeah, man, I definitely keep cranking out the content. I'm expecting big things from you in 2022. I'll leave all your information in the video details in the show notes when I put this up, and looking forward to the product, and building communities together, helping people find the light, the truth of $1 beers and palm trees.
Well, appreciate it, Vance. I really thanks so much for inviting me, man. I enjoyed it. So thanks.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Looking forward to collaborating in the future, and thanks again for coming on.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon.
Ciao, bro.